In class.
That's where Jen was, I think she's probably pattern.
She is, because we're off to America. Off to America on Sunday, so these sort of talks are quite good practice for America as well, actually. So tonight, I'm going to start off with a bit of a talk for you, and then we're going to have another sort of quite soon into it, have a bit of a tea break, and then any questions you can ask me during that tea break and so forth, and have a natter between yourselves and so forth. And then afterwards we're going to do a bit of practice again like we did last time. So it's part learning, part practice, and part socialising. So hopefully we've got all the elements there that make it fun. And for those of you that haven't worked before and things, just have a go with each other and things like that with these experiments we do, because nobody's judging, and it's all part of a learning experience and sort of part of learning about yourselves and the spirit world and how it all works and so forth. So tonight, our theme is spirit guides, which is a huge subject, which I'm going to compress down into a very short period of time. And I'm even going to expand it a little bit, because within spiritualism, we talk a lot about how mediums and how individuals are guided by the spirit helpers from the other side. And I want to sort of expand that a little bit, really about, I suppose, spiritual guidance, the way that we can find out through our inner self, as it were, to get, let's say, messages from the universe, how we can get guidance. And spirit guides is kind of part of it, but also I'd like to include a few other things. Now, if we think about getting inner guidance, one of the most easily accessible that everybody can connect with is through our intuitive side. And our intuitive side comes mainly, that's good, I shut the window. Our intuitive side comes very often for most of us through dreams. So dreams can be one of our first ways in to accessing the inner self, the intuition. And often you find through dreams, when that rational mind is out of the way, our intuitive self, our self that sees things as a whole rather than tries to categorize things, begins to come into play. So anybody that's working with psychic development, I think it's a good idea to keep a dream diary and write your dreams down every morning if you can. Even for some of them, it's a bit of a hassle to do it all the time. But have periods where you work with it and see what comes up. So if you've got things on your mind or you're worried about where you're going and something you want to find an answer in life, ask the unconscious mind, called dream incubation. If you ask yourself a question before you go to sleep, your unconscious mind may come up with an answer, albeit in symbolic form. So if you've got a problem, it might give you a dream, and when you start looking at the symbolism of the dream, you say, hey, yeah, that's my subconscious telling me that, that's the way I'm feeling, or that's the way I ought to be dealing with this. You interpret it symbolically. Particularly if it's to do often with things like communicating with the dead, because often when we dream about the dead, sometimes I think the dead can communicate with us through dreams, but other times our own fears can be involved, and we can often have dreams that are frightening about people that we know that have died, or we feel that they're rejecting us or something like that, because it's like our feelings feel like we've been rejected. So this intuitive side plays a big role in connecting ourselves with finding answers. The other way is that when we're working with people, we can often use that intuitive side to give a reading. So for example, if we're doing tarot readings and so forth, or we're doing even a psychic reading, we use our intuitive self to give that reading. It's like something in us knows the answer for that person. It's often some people call themselves empathic or empaths, and that is often people that kind of can pick up on your emotions or your feelings, just get a gut feeling of what's making you feel wrong at the moment. And most psychic readers you see are kind of working on that level very often. But the guidance, again, is coming through listening to their unconscious mind giving them information. It's things popping into your head, you don't know where it comes from, it just pops into your head. And with all psychic work, this is really quite critical in many ways, because we have to learn to put that rational side of ourselves out of the way. This is the biggest problem I find when I'm teaching people, trying to stop them to rationalising, and for myself too. All of us, as soon as we get something from the unconscious or something from the great beyond, something that's popped into our head, we think, oh, that's that, and it can't be that, it can't be that, it can't be as simple as that, and we change things all the time, and we mess it up for ourselves. But if we give it as we get it, we might make more mistakes, but this is how it works. And that's why we got a lot of good results last week, because people were just going with what I was describing as verbal diarrhea, just going with what comes. And it's still very important to think about that when we connect. And also, when we're looking for our own inner guidance, not to censor things again. We have to open. We have to open ourselves. So we're opening our unconscious minds. But there's another side of us that needs to open up to the bigger things in the universe. Now, mediumship, of course, is opening up to the spirit world. But we can't connect to the spirit world if our mind and our heart in particular is not open. Because a very closed person, you know, who's very self-obsessed, as I am sometimes, but won't hear the spirit connecting with them. You've got to open your mind and be open to it, not constantly thinking. It's again a little bit like this idea of having a still pool, that when there's a still pool, you can drop one stone in it and you can see all the ripples very quickly. But a pool that's all up and down, you can throw a stone in and it won't make any difference. And the spirit, when they connect, it's like dropping that little pebble in and we hear that thought, as it were, inwardly. So getting this inner state is important. This is where meditation comes in and why we have to attune to the inner self, the unconscious mind. But we also have to attune to us part of ourselves, which I perhaps call the heart or the conscience as well. Because we can often ask a question within ourselves. So we ask ourselves a question and we're not looking to get the answer we want to hear. We can put the ego aside and we can put our preconceptions aside. We can put aside what we think we ought to hear. Then we can open ourselves to that tremendous power that we have within us, which you could perhaps call the heart or you could call the conscience. It's like there's something in each of us that knows exactly what to do. It's just we kick all around the bush and go every direction except the way that we know we ought to do. It can apply to our reactions to other people, it can be to the things we want to do in our life, you know. And I think if we did all follow our heart through life, we'd all be a lot happier people. We tell ourselves, it ought to be this way, or it ought to be that way. And very often I find doing psychic work, it's very easy to tell other people what to do. It seems so clear and simple, you know, you just do this, that, and then, that's wonderful, that's what I needed to do. Of course, to tell myself that is very difficult because I'm all entangled with my expectations of what I think I should be and shouldn't be and so forth, you know. You know, someone said to me, Craig, you ought to go and cook burgers again like you did when you were a nipper. No, you know, all the resistance, you know. There's lots of things that we would resist. So, but we can nonetheless get a certain clarity if we can learn to let go of our expectations and open our hearts and open our minds, and that can often come in the quiet meditation. And that's the time also when we can get guidance from the spirit world. Now, to get messages from the spirit is very easy really. You just have to have a quiet mind, a quiet heart, and sit in the silence. You just have to open yourself. And sometimes it's also good just to ask, you know, can I be given some guidance, please? And what will happen is not some spirit guide will come and stand in front of you, and not some forceful thought will be pushed upon you, or somebody touch you and give you all these impressions. It won't be like that. It'll be just very, very simple. It'll be very gentle, still voice, as they call it. It'll be a quiet echo somewhere in your thoughts, where the thought will come through. And it's a bit like when your conscience knows best, you know. That's that thought. There can be all thoughts surrounding you that are all loud and full of chatter, but there's a quiet voice there that you know that's the answer. I just don't listen, I don't see it, you know. So it's exactly the same. It's learning to observe our inner self, our inner world. And even when a medium is working on the platform and giving spirit messages, I'm I and other mediums are constantly looking within. It's like we're meditating almost. There's a stillness that we kind of bring with us. Even though we might be talking fast, we might be having a conversation, animated conversation like I'm having now, but behind it, there's a stillness that we bring forward, which the spirit world can connect with, and they keep that communication open through the mediumship. So that's how we connect with the spirit guides, through that inner stillness. Now, when we look at the history of spiritualism and when we visit other mediums, if you've been in spiritualism for some time, you begin to see that a lot of the stuff about spirit guides is the realms of total crackpots. Because I've seen people channeling people from the UFOs, and I've seen people channeling, always great beings and guides and things like this, and American Indians and things. And although some of it I'm sure is right, a lot of it, I think, is coming from that first thing I was talking about, that unconscious mind, that dream sleep mind. So I, for one, am very critical very often with trance mediumship, because I think trance mediumship can be absolutely marvellous, but sometimes it can be completely just an ego trip, or it can be a complete fantasy. So how do we know the difference? When Jane and I did the Spirit of Diana programs, we did all these links with Spirit of Diana for the American program we did that time, and we went to great lengths to give evidence and proof, and yet they had another medium on there who was just talking stuff from some great saint from some time and giving all this information. I thought, there's nothing there verifiable, absolutely cannot be verified. So I think the important thing with trance, when guides speak directly through a medium, is that they give some evidence. I mean, I've done some trance work sometimes, and always messages come through that the person can take as from somebody in spirit. So we know all the time that we're getting evidence, proof from spirit. And then if other things are said, like philosophy, we know it's coming from the spirit guide. And when the spirit guide speaks through a medium in these trance-like states, the medium's mind is still chattering away, and the spirit's mind is trying to connect, but you still might get some of the medium's mind coming in too. That's why often you'll get opinions, like strong Christian views, or strong Buddhist views, or strong views of that medium, interfering with what the spirit person is connecting to say. In a pure connection, very often, the things that are said from the spirit guides are often completely contradictory to what the medium believes, So again, evidence is important. And I think when we learn about and find out about who our spirit guides are, ask them for evidence. Ask them to prove themselves. And very often you'll get the proof, sometimes through other mediums, because they might give you a message from that guide and say something that you had an inner connection with, show me a blue feather, and another medium says to you, oh, I see a blue feather, does that mean something to you? That was the proof that we asked for. And so we can get a connection with the spirit guides to learn if they are part of us or if they are some independent being. And often they're a merger of the two. Because if you think about what people in the spirit are, as a medium, I'm going to have people I love working with me, I'm going to have members of my family who have passed over working through me. That's great, because I know who they are, and I can get the sense of their feelings. I can almost feel their atmosphere, their voice, almost smell their perfume or aftershave. You get this connection. But then if a spirit guide is working with me, I think, well, how do I know who that spirit guide is? Because actually, the more you progress into the spirit, the more you shed your identity and your earthly existence. So you actually become beings of light. So often the spirit will take on a form so we can recognize them. That they might take on a form of an American Indian, or they might take on a form of, in my case, I have a clown sometimes work with me, someone that mucks around all the time when I'm working with people and finds all the false teeth jokes and things like that, and so you get these spirit guides that take on a form, and I think, well, I don't know if that person really was a clown in his past life, or whether he was American Indian in his past life. Then I think, does it matter? Does it matter at all? That's just the egg shell that they've given me to make the connection. What matters is if I can give proof and evidence because of their help to help someone to understand that life goes on, give some proof of continuation of life that we can accept ourselves. So, with all this guide business, I think it's really important not to get carried away with the fairies. It's oh my, we've had some great fun putting fairies up, fairy door up my granddaughter recently. It's been tremendous fun. So she's completely fairy obsessed, and I wish we could live like that. But the reality is, we need to have a certain amount of discernment when it comes to things like that, when we want to find out about who our guides are and what's going on in the depths of our unconscious mind or in the spirit world around us. And we're going to work with some of that later on. Now, I'm going to also just now briefly tell you about another way we can connect, what not many people know about. And I'm just going to tell you a little story about something that's been quite incredible, been happening to me recently. Because I've always believed you can get other connections from really, really great beings. Now, I'm a follower of Sai Baba, for example, and he's an Indian holy man who who died not that long ago, really. But he still connects through people through your dreams and gives you messages through your dreams. And you can write a message to him and you'll get the answer through life or something like that. He's one of these sort of people that calls himself omnipresent everywhere, you know? So it's mind-boggling stuff, and you'd have to look into it and research it a bit and read the stories behind it before I can just expect you to even believe what I'm saying here. But sometimes these very high beings, these spiritual beings, like the great Rishis of old, like the avatars as they call them, like the Sai Babas, like the Jesuses, they are beings that have an omnipresence that can connect with us on a very, very deep level and answer our spiritual problems for us. Now, I wanted to know what to, I'm off to America to do a whole load of tours and things like that, and I really, really was at a bit of a crisis point. Is this the right thing to do? Because it's like putting everything at risk for me and Jane at the moment, because we're doing so much changes. So I needed to know, so I wrote a letter to Sai Baba, please give me a really clear answer, 100% positive. I don't want any of this nonsense with, omens and bits and pieces, and I've seen a number of readings, I had a number of readings from psychics, frankly, that was absolute nonsense, fork-tongued stuff, and it's all praise and nothing else, oh no. I want to know absolutely what I should do with my life and where I'm going. That was a kind of a really important point for me. And Sai Baba had recently died, so that was a bit of a crisis for me. And I thought, no, I need to know. So you write the letter, you meditate on Sai Baba's picture for a while, you ask, and then you wait for it to happen. Nothing happened. Until somebody connected with me who was a Sai Baba devotee on Facebook, a friend I'd had for many, many years, and we were connecting right back when the internet first got started, which shows how old I am. And these are the days before Google and everything, when it's all just email and one or two odd search engines. And we'd been communicating for quite a few years, and we connected again on Facebook, and he said, great fun to meet again, and we were talking about all the things about Sai Baba and that, then he said, I've discovered something in India that I know you've been looking for a long time, Craig, because when I went to Rishikesh in India, I was trying to track down what we call the Nadi leaf readers. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the Nadi leaf readers, probably not. But these leaves were written down, they claim, 5,000 years ago, and then rewritten and rewritten and rewritten, and passed down through generation after generation after generation. Now these leaves were written by the Rishis, and the Rishis, there's Sathya Rishis, which are the 7 Rishis which were trained, as it were, or were devotees of Shiva. And apparently Shiva's wife wanted to know her future. And Shiva said that I can't give you your future without giving you the future of everybody, all mankind and all who ever walk this earth. So in his omnipresence, as I'm talking about this divine being manifested the futures of everybody so that his wife could get her message, right? Talk about, going about it with a sledgehammer. But this is the legend anyway, but these leaves were written down 5,000 years ago and passed down through generations and generations. They're on palm leaves, so they're just rewritten. They were written originally in Sanskrit, then they were written in Tamil, ancient Tamil, and then they were written in Tamil, which is an Indian dialect, mainly of the south of India. And they contain the futures of anybody that is to consult them. So I consulted them through my friend via the internet. We made an internet connection with one of the Nadi readers in India. And it was one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen. There was plenty of safeguards put in place. He could not know my email address. He could not know who I was. There was absolutely zero way he can know anything about me. All he was given was my thumbprint. Because the way the Nadi readers work is they look for a particular thumbprint of that person, look up the thumbprint, and that will take you to the leaf. And I've read stories exactly the same as I was about to tell you about what happened to me, that happened to people way before the internet, people that went to India and consulted the Nadi readers and got very similar information. And what he said to me was remarkable, because first of all, the first thing he told me was the name of my ex-wife. Now, there's no way anybody knows that, because I don't publicise that on the internet or anything like that. And then he said, you've been married, and I thought, oh, you know, all the things, he says that. And then he tells me the name of my present wife. And I said, yes, that's correct, right? And then he says, your mother's name is Ethel. Your father's name is Donald. Okay. Yes. How did he know that? He then told me my birthday. And I said, yes, that's correct. And told me a couple of astrological things. You know, your moon is in Virgo, which is correct. He then went on and told me he said, you've got 2 daughters, both one married, one not now, correct. You've got 1 sister, she's widowed. You've got 1 brother, and she named them, you know. And he went through all this information, one bit at a time, blowing my mind. Not a single no did I give him once he got the leaf. Not a single no. And I was absolutely shaking at the knees, because I know for a fact there was absolutely no way he could have got access to this. And even if he got on the internet and got access to it, he would not have known, for example, that Jane had a skin condition at the time, because nobody knew that. And everything was bang on. Yes, 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 yes. He identified my leaf that told me, and then he told me everything about my present, my past, and my future. I couldn't believe it. So he said that one of the things you will be doing is talking about these leaves to other people, to tell the world about it, because he said, you are a spiritual teacher. He said, you are you're a spiritual teacher, you do psychic consultations, you write books, you used to be a painter. And how did he know all these things? You know? Incredible. And he told me, and I'm not going to tell you the rest, because he told me all the things that are going to happen to me as time unfolds in my life from now on.
That's scary though, isn't it?
And told me the day I will die.
That's horrible though. How did you feel about that? What day
Well, he hinted the day I will die. But he said you will be... I'll say about that, because he said you do yoga. I say yes, you do lots of yoga. You're very healthy from your yoga, he says. He says you do yoga and meditation. You'll continue to do that through your life. And I see you healthy, right? I see you healthy 70, healthy 76, healthy 78. And he didn't say anything much more after that. So we have, up to that point, we have, and who knows how far it'll go. And I really worry, you know, at the end of the day. But he just take a seat, yeah. And it's all right. And so this was quite an astonishing. You can imagine how I felt after that, you know. You get all that information, you know. And he told me about, you know, the sort of things we're doing here today and how this is now going to expand and be around the world. And here I am off to America, and he saw all that and everything. So I think when we talk about spirit guides, he was also talking about teaching about getting guidance from the universe. And I thought, yeah, that's a really nice phrase. I might turn that into a book title, you know, because this is where we can get it on so many levels. Because these great teachers from the past were omnipresent, you know, 5,000 years ago, they could see my personal life, and my mum's life, and my dad's life, and my sister's life, and my wife's life, and give me details of all of them, you know? And everybody's name is on there, apparently. 40% of them were lost because the British, God bless them, went and stole half the Nadi leaves and put them in the British Museum. So that and the Nadi leaf readers now actually had to buy them back off the British so that this tradition could continue. But these are one of the great treasures of India and one of the most fascinating things that you could ever know about. And very, very few people know about the secret oracle, you know. And I'm sure you must be quite intrigued. But as I came out with my knees absolutely shaking after that. And I have now connections with the Nadi readers throughout India, and I'm going to be doing lots of readings with lots of them to start to see if I can qualify the information and get more information and so forth. So, as the oracle there explained, you know, we just really need to learn that we're not there's lots of teachings in it, so some of it's going to come through in there, but we're not our bodies, we are our spirits. And our spirits are not limited either to our bodily frame or even to the spirit itself. We are all omnipresent. We are all interconnected to this huge, great oneness of the universe. And as psychic and spiritual and mediumistic people, although we're getting information from the spirit world, we are also getting information from that great beyond. You know, we're getting it from the Atma, you know, the great God force that lies behind the universe. And if we start to come from that standpoint with work that we do, if we come from the standpoint that, you know, we are that universal energy, each of us is infinite energy, and that this personality is just something that's like floating around in it, like flotsam, you know, behind it there's this oneness. We come from that, and our psychic and mediumistic and spiritual work becomes much less egotistical. It becomes much more human and connected to everybody. Because you look around at the psychic world at the moment, and it is absolutely corrupt. It's been ruined by greed, people milking it for money, people milking it for sensationalism, ghosts jumping out of wardrobes, and people going around with silly machines that pick up metal detectors to pick up ghosts and things. All this complete nonsense. And they've forgotten what a wonderful guidance can come through the psychic, the mediumistic, and the higher levels of the spirit. And when we talk of spirit guides, we have the spirit guides like I've described, but we also have this divine guidance that can come through every one of us, because all of us are, at the end of the day, divine beings living in a material world. And there you go. Right, I think now, after all that, it would be a good idea to have a cup of tea, and then we can carry on with doing some practical work with working with guides and so forth. Okay?